This is a 2015 GMC Acadia. It's got a bad right rear wheel bearing, and that's what we're going to be replacing today. It's not the actual bearing that's bad, but it's the tone ring that's integrated into the bearing that's bad. It's causing an erratic signal for the right rear wheel speed sensor. And when that happens, it kicks off your ABS, your traction control, Stabilitrak, and all that stuff. Makes a mess of everything. So we're going to replace that bearing. I should also mention that this repair applies to the Chevy Traverse, the Buick Enclave, and the Saturn Outlook, as they are all the same vehicle with different cladding on them. They all use that same wheel bearing. The wheel nuts on this vehicle are 22 millimeter. So we need to remove the brake caliper, and we're going to remove the brake caliper with the bracket attached because we're not actually servicing the brake, so there's really no need to remove the caliper pins. The bolts that secure the bracket to the rear knuckle are 21 millimeter. Okay, we don't want to let the brake caliper hang from the hose. We'll hook it to this, maybe hook it to the sway bar right here. Now normally there's a T40 screw in here that retains the brake rotor onto the hub, but whoever changed the brakes last, left it out, which is nice because here they're always rusted, so we'll get the rotor out of the way. Okay, and then on the back side of the knuckle you can see there's 3 bolts. Those are the 3 bolts that retain that hub assembly into the steering knuckle, and they're 18 millimeter. And I believe I can get them off from underneath here using the long extension with a flexible 18 millimeter socket on the end. There's a 3rd bolt. It's a good idea to spray the threads down on the end of the axle. The axle nut on this particular axle is a 34 millimeter. We just want to make sure that the axle is loose within the hub assembly, and it is. So for these stubborn hub assemblies, what I like to use is this hub buster. I bought this on Amazon. There's actually a link to it in the description of this video, and they call it a hub buster, hub shocker. It's got a few different names. And it's got one purpose, and it's to rip these hub assemblies out. And it works very well. I save old lug nuts. I've got a whole drawer full of old lug nuts because when you use it and you run these lug nuts down, it does kind of screw them up. So it's a good idea not to use the lug nuts off the car. But basically what this thing is it's a big lever. And I find that it works best if you put it at the 12 o'clock position, and then you strike it with a sledgehammer right here, and it'll peel that bearing right out of the knuckle. But we got to tighten these down first, though. You can use it with it at the 6 o'clock, but you just have to remember the whole purpose of this is leverage. And if you're hitting it here with it at the 6 o'clock, well, then all that force has to go all the way up through the hub assembly and then peel the top out. It's just a lot harder. Whereas if you turn it up here and you hit it now, you're directly right on the top and you're just going to peel it right out of there. You want to be careful not to swing too hard. The first time I did it, I went all crazy with the hammer, and man, I swung on it so hard, I ripped the whole bearing out, and it just ripped the wire and everything right off all in one blow. Now this one we don't have to worry because the wire's not connected. That being said, our parking brakes are, so get that. Okay, so before I even separate the steering knuckle from the backing plate, I just wanted to show you this right here. Right inside here, this is the speed sensor. It's flat on this side. You can see, and what that does is this part right here rides up against the back of the bearing. And you can see this little piece right here is the tone ring. See the little lines there? It's not supposed to be half black and half silver, but as you can see, it's just falling apart. But anyway, anytime you look at a hub assembly and you're having an ABS issue and you look at your tone ring and it's all screwed up like that, that's where your problem's going to be right there. So we're going to pop this out of the bearing, get this surface cleaned up, clean up the inside, about 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch inside there, get that all cleaned up, and try not to damage the speed sensor, and we'll put this all back together. You want to be really careful not to damage that sensor. And honestly, if you're not, if this is your first time doing this or something, it'd be worth it to you to take that 10mm bolt out and just carefully pry this plastic sensor up out of the hole, just so that you don't end up damaging it. We're going to be nice to ourselves and put a little bit of grease on here. Now this particular bearing, it has a 3-year warranty, so got it from Napa. I'll put a link to one down in the description that doesn't have a 3-year warranty, and it'll probably be significantly cheaper than this one. Just to show you what I was talking about, you can see what the tone ring looks like, or what it's supposed to look like. This is what it's supposed to look like. Not so much like this. Okay, I threw a little bit of grease right around there. That's to help everything come back apart if I ever take this vehicle apart again. Okay, I got one started. Now you'll see that these bolts have red Loctite in the threads. There's really no reason to add more Loctite. I mean, if it makes you feel better, you can. But I'm going to promise you, these aren't going to come loose again. As long as you snug them up, they're not going to come loose. Okay, they're all started by hand. Okay, we're going to tighten the wheel bearing bolts down to factory specs. Okay, the book says 151 foot-pounds. There it is. You guys thought I was just going to run that in with a gun, didn't you? Okay, we're going to go ahead and put the brakes back on. Even though it doesn't matter, I'm going to line up the hole for the screw. So when you put your rotor back on, it's really important that you press it against the hub flange and roll it back and forth. Because we had this whole thing off here, and a lot of times, especially here in northern Michigan, these dust shields get rusty and they get real pliable, I guess you could say, and they'll bend super easy, and they'll make contact with the rotor, and they'll make a heck of a screeching sound, and you'll be really upset when you pull the car outside. So ours isn't making contact, so we're good. We'll put these two 21mm bolts back in that secure the caliper bracket to the knuckle, and then we'll go test drive it. So that's all there is to changing the wheel bearing on a GMC Acadia, Chevy Traverse, Buick Enclave, or Saturn Outlook. And quite honestly, maybe even the smaller vehicles on the GM platform are probably very similar to this one. Well, I mean, they're all similar. If you found this video helpful, give me a thumbs up, hit subscribe, check out my other content. I appreciate the support. Thank you for watching.